Hello, all my crafty people out there. It's time for our weekly project. If you have not been here before, my name is Stephanie, and I upcycle clothing, generally items I thrift from my local stores. We either make new clothing or accessories. And today I have something that I was attracted to. I have no idea why. It was 99 cents. That probably had some doing on there. It's a tablecloth. I'm sure it is. And it's rectangular. It's a pretty big one, but it's very simple, and it's got these pretty little flowers on it, kind of like a stylized tulip, and this little edge. It's not rickrack. It's just printed like that. So I think we can make one of our four shirts that we voted on not too long ago. This little shirt right here. It is the McCall's 8202. I think y'all remember that one. We're going to make this one. I'm not looking for a lot of ruffle. Not a ruffle girl. So I'm making a simple one, but I think adding the fact that we'll have this on the bottom edge and the flowers will make it really super cute and light for the summer, which we need light down here. So if you'd like to see how it turns out, follow along, like, subscribe, don't forget to share, and I'll see y'all at the table. Okay, everybody, this is our fabric. I folded it up, obviously. The tablecloth is 41 inches by 84 inches. So there is obviously at least 2 yards in here off of what would be pretty much a standard bolt size. So we've got plenty enough fabric to make this one. This one. These two have ruffle, and I'm just not big on ruffle. I am only worried about the length on this one a little bit, so I may add an inch. I've got to take into account that I'm not going to be hemming it, of course. So I may not need to add an inch. There's an inch in the border around here, so we'll see. Anyway, I've got all my pieces cut out, and yes, again, I cut them because this only had so many sizes, and I cut the largest size, so if I needed to reduce it, it wouldn't be hard. The tricky part, of course, is going to be like our last tablecloth project. We're going to have to make sure we kind of fussy cut what we want out of it. And there is some direction to this. So the direction of the flowers changes in the middle. I'm not really sure why. I mean, I guess that makes sense. It's kind of cool. So we're also going to be able to keep the border on the sleeves. So let me get to laying it out, to fussy cut and whatever else we need. And we'll get started. Okay, we've got all of our pieces cut out. These are the two, the back and the front and the sleeve. And then there's 4 parts to the little square neckline. And you have to cut out so many in fabric, so many in interfacing. And so I'm constantly taking the pattern pieces off. So I just labeled them. This is a leftover postcard from my dentist. Obviously, I don't have a lot of paper in the house that's just free and, ready to be written on. So I labeled them, and I went ahead and attached the fusible interfacing to one of each of the pieces that needed it. So these are over there. They're just very similar, and it's easier if you have some labels instead of having to put the pattern pieces back on them. It's a half dozen one way or the other, though. Now what we need to do with these 2 pieces first is go and do our gathers. So we're going to be gathering between the squares on this pattern. I did go ahead and mark where those are. So all I did was lift it, stick a pen through it, and mark it on each side. So we're going to go gather, and there's a gathering right here in the front over the fold between these circles. And that just gives us that little pucker in the front that we need. And hopefully it'll make it simple to put the neckline in. Oh, how I curse myself with those crazy ideas. So let me go run the gathers, and then we're going to start assembling. And the assembly's a little weird. We're going to be assembling from this piece here and on the back. So the shoulder isn't attached to anything until you get the neckline in. So it's kind of different. But I think it's going to be fun to try. That's what we say. Just a quick note on the gathering. I am gathering with my fabric right side facing me. I have a different color bobbin thread. This happens to be the yellow from our last project that's still in the machine. So, hey, convenience. You want to pull your thread up and you want to pull a long tail. This helps you get started when you're pulling the gather. You're going to run 2 stitches. I run one with my needle closest to the end here, which is about a 1/4 stitch, and then the middle, which is 3/4 of a stitch. And I also make sure that I am using a 3.5 millimeter stitch length. That helps give it the looseness it needs to gather. Okay, I put all the gathering stitches in, and you don't have to gather them right now. I was just going to show you. I'm pulling the bobbin threads, which I happen to do in a separate color, if I can get a hold of them. If you have thicker thread, sometimes that works really well too. But that 3.5 inch length or 3.5 millimeter length stitch really makes it easy for that gather to just roll over. Having 2 lines is not always my way. I think it depends on the project, but this is very thin fabric, and having 2 lines just helps stabilize that when you pull the gathers. Gives it twice the the weight, and you don't have to worry about breaking a thread. It's just more stable. I understand that, but I have used one in the past, just if it was a lighter project. Sorry, y'all, I'm still doing the allergy thing. But I just wanted to show you how easy the stitches will roll. If I can keep my fingers on these. Ooh! Another reason to use a different color and sometimes a heavier thread. But super simple. We'll gather and worry about the width of that gather when we're doing the neckline. But for right now, what we need to do, and this is not like the peasant sleeve, we're going to sew both of our underarm seams right here, right sides together. And then we're also going to go ahead and sew the front and back together, because the way this construction is going to roll is we have to have these together and these in order to fit them into each other. So let me go sew just the side seams and the underarm seams, and I'll come back and show y'all how we're just going to fit those together for the next portion of our construction. Okay, I've got all the side seams and seams underneath the arms done, and I pressed them open. These are seams you want to press open so they meet nice and flush with each other. This is an arm that's already inserted. The body is turned right side in, and we know that because we have the border of the tablecloth that we kept as a hem. It's inside. And we have our sleeve turned right side out, so we can meet right sides to right sides. I did keep the notches on both of these sleeves to make sure that they lined up and they were in properly, because they look very similar. When they're this symmetric, I don't want to take the chance of them not matching up. The first thing I always do is I match up the seam line. And I make sure, since that seam has been pressed open, it will work well together without being bulky. So we just want to make sure that both of these seams are meeting properly. And then once we meet the seams, we can go by the darts which, as we all know, the double darts are usually in the back. And we're going to line those up. And we're just pinning this into place, essentially. So once we've got it all pinned into place, we'll go over to the machine and we will stitch both of the armhole bottoms, the ones that attach it to the bodice. The top of the sleeve is going to be covered in the neckline, that square neckline. It's not a construction I've done before, not like this, so I'm kind of interested to see how it goes. Okay, we got something that's starting to look like a blouse, a shirt. I still have the gathers there. That, of course, will be adjusted when I put the neckline in, but the sleeves are in now. I did serge over the seam allowance inside just to give it a nice finish. And since I did not have to hem this when I sewed up the sides, I went ahead and did a little stitching on that seam allowance just to make sure it's secure. It's a little finishing touch. And I did it on the arms too. And now we're going to put the collar together. Okay, it's time to talk about this collar. It's unique and it's a little challenging. As you can see, even though these are folded over, they're very close in size and shape. The only thing that's really standing out on this back piece is the double notch. I would highly recommend making that double notch. The little side notches, not so much, because that's just lining up the other pieces, but that little double notch might save your life on this one. So this is the back. This is the front. This is the back. So it would go like, wait, it's going to go back here. And this would be the front that goes with that part. All right. Now you have to cut double of all of these pieces because this part will be on the outside and this part will be the facing on the inside with the interfacing attached to it. So I kept them labeled with some makeshift postcards that I made. I don't know if I already told y'all that, but anyway, I wanted to make sure I could continually keep the pieces identifiable. Now, the other thing is, these are white, and they're white on both sides. They're not double-sided by any means, and they all have 2 dots at the slanted end. And what I do is I take a pen and I stick it through that little circle. And that's how I'm able to use my marker to mark those 2 little points. And I mark it from the inside. So now those dots are marked perfectly on all 4 of these pieces. Well, technically, I guess it's 6 pieces. But point is, try to keep it together as much as you can, and it will help you. I'm going to put this to the front up here, like this. That's the way that goes. And I'm going to put the piece up here just so I have some kind of recognition of it. You don't have to go that far, but it helps when I'm instructing. Down here is the back of the collar. And then these 2, of course, each have 2 pieces because they're the 2 side pieces. And this is the front, the 5. Yes. So both of those pieces go like... I could have just turned them over. It wouldn't matter. They're both white. So you got that, this down here, put the 5 up there, 7 up there. Makes it a little easier. And then the 6 is the back part. These, again, are extremely similar, but it would make a difference if you mix them up. So you want to take these 2, like that one has a little piece on it. It's going to get caught up in the seam, though. No big deal. Now, the 2 dots on each of these pieces on this, the angled end, are what you're sewing between. So you're going to sew between the 2 dots on each of these angles. First, you'll sew these 2 together. Then you'll sew each of them at the angles. And these will give you that easement you need to lay it into the collar. You will need that opening, that seam allowance opening at both ends to lay it into the collar and get the facing on. So let me go sew these 2 together all the way across, and then sew each angle together between the dots. And then we'll talk about how we're going to get it on this collar, because it's a little tricky. Okay, everybody. The neck is the thing to beat in this pattern. It's a challenge. First, you got to start like this. Yes, that doesn't look like it makes any sense whatsoever. But you have to line up these double notches with the back double notches, the back of the shirt. And once you do that, then you just kind of work your way around. And the tricky part is these seams. I haven't quite mastered them yet, but essentially they're supposed to go together where when you open it up, obviously your seam and your seam match, and this shoulder seam will go in on the big dot in the center of your sleeve. But obviously it looks funny here because you're going to be doing this. Trust me, I think it will work out. There's not a lot of good directions in the pattern itself, so no go there. So let me just try to get it pinned, and then we'll see what happens, because we got to do this twice. Got to pin this here, put it on, and then we've got to pin on the lining that goes inside and do it again. Okay, I have to admit, I was pleasantly surprised that this went in. It's almost one of those things where pinning it just doesn't do it justice. I mean, it did. It kept it from going crazy. But as long as you turn these corners, just like a corner, it really wasn't bad. And I went ahead and finished the edge with a serge line, but you don't have to do that. It just wants you to trim it close if you need, if you seam it a couple of times, just for security. So I admit, I'm pleasantly surprised at how well it went in. So it ends up looking like this. This is the front. So I think it's turning out really cute. Nice and flowy. I love this light cotton fabric. It's going to be perfect for the summer. Now it's our last step, and that's putting in the facing that goes inside the collar. So I went ahead and also serged around the edge of this. It says to go ahead and hem it and finish it to the 5/8 inch. And I thought about that, but I think I'm going to wait until I get in here and see if I really need to. Because I'd like to kind of tuck it under and, you know, I might just iron it. But I want to tuck it under and catch this seam that you press towards the neckline. So or the neckband as they're calling it. So I know, had to make kind of a mental note of it, that this flower on this piece is the back. So this is an easier process, obviously, because we're just fitting seam to seam. So I'm going to go, after you pin it on And you're just matching your seams at this point. After you pin it on, then you can go sew all the way around, turn your lining in, and ow, ooh, Lord, I bleed on this fabric more than anything. Then you can kind of fix this seam to go over the seam in the inside. It says just to slip stitch the seam lines, but I would probably slip stitch around it all the way just to make sure it didn't move. So let me finish pinning this on all the way around. Then we'll go to the machine, sew it down, and tuck it in. And I think we'll be trying it on. All right, all my crafty friends. I think it turned out kind of cute. I'm super excited. I'm telling you, I was worried about this collar. It was touch and go. But once I was able to keep all the pieces straight, it went together much better than I thought. It was just pivoting that corner I was worried about. But it worked. I would recommend it. Give it a try. It could be a little smaller, but I'm pretty comfy in this. I think it turned out. So, for everybody that voted for this one, I hope this helps. And if you enjoyed the journey, please like, subscribe. Let me know what you think. And I will catch y'all on the flip side of our next project.